Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome in to the third episode of Season 8, Sox on Tap. Steven, we are setting the tone around here as the White Sox are setting the tone themselves in the early goings of spring training. Steve, it's good to see 3 up in the win column and 0 in the loss column. That's a great start. I think the Sox are setting the tone. Are you setting the tone, Steve? Are you setting the tone? I see you got the hashtag tone setter out. How's it going, my friend?
Anthony, as you know, I always set the tone. And it's been well documented that you have to set the tone during the Cactus League to, get the season off to a good start. So, and, hey, the tone was set early this morning. We got to give a shout out to the boys from Team USA bringing the gold home. Let's go, baby. That's how you start your Sunday. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Steven, hey, best hockey team in the world. Best hockey team in the world. Ronald and I will be talking a little bit about that game tomorrow night on Four Feathers podcast. But, Steve, we were up early today watching some hockey. It was a great way to start the day. Finish that off with another White Sox winner, their third of the season. It was a good Sunday. Really good sports Sunday, if you ask me.
Hashtag facts only, my friends. I mean, you can't beat it.
It's true. We got some comments coming in here. Daniel, happy Sunday. What's up, guys? What's up, Daniel? Happy Sunday to you too as well. Our guy Michael is back. Nothing tickles his fancy more than Anthony saying Steven. Michael, we're glad to have you back here.
I'm gonna have to interject here for a second. Michael, I don't know who this Stefan is that you're referring to, because everybody knows it's been well documented that real Stevens spell their name with a V. Because if it's spelled with a PH, that just means your parents wanted a Stephanie.
I don't know.
Those are hashtag facts only.
I don't know what's on Steven's birth certificate. We'll have to do an On Tap investigates on that one. Our guy Voodoo's here. R.I.P. Jack Hughes Chicklets. Yeah, he took one of the face today, but he got that gold medal. I'm pretty sure he's going to be happy with that gold medal.
Just fine.
And I loved the fact that we woke up this morning and everybody was talking about this hockey game. I know this is a baseball show and we'll talk about baseball stuff in a second, but if you can't tell, both of us here, big hockey guys, we're rocking the red, white, and blue Sox gear like we should be today. It was a good Sunday. And once again, congratulations to Team USA on taking home the gold. Steve, let's get into a couple of these games. Started off on Friday with our first spring training action against the hated Chicago Cubes. And it was an 8-1 rout for the Chicago White Sox. This is not what I expected in game 1 of spring training. Normally, we have been on the receiving end of a couple of beatings from that franchise lately, and they were a playoff team last year. Obviously, it was the debut of a couple of different new acquisitions on both sides of Chicago. Alex Bregman for the Cubs, Munetake Murakami. I don't know how we want to spell his name here. It's still up for debate for some. But Steven, 8-1. Johnny Cannon got the start. Got touched up a little bit there, but other than the one run, no, I thought it was a pretty solid baseball game to set the tone for the 2026 season. Steve, why don't you take me through what you saw on Friday afternoon?
Like you said, I mean, they came out early. Austin Hayes, new face for this team, hitting a dinger on the very first pitch he saw. Hashtag setting the tone.
That is a good way to set.
That's how you draw it up, my friend. So got that going. Johnny Cannon, like everybody knows, I was hopeful for Johnny Cannon. Saw some positivity from him when he got called up initially in 2023, or excuse me, during the 2024 season. And then, last year, things just really never materialized. There's not really been progression. And the start on Friday, granted, yes, it's spring training. It's the first outing of the spring. It's only a couple of innings, but really a continuation of a lot of the problems that we saw a year ago, just not being able to put guys away with consistency, giving up, contact on a pretty regular basis there. I think, unfortunately for him, he's probably going to start the year down in Charlotte for the AAA Knights. And I think he's kind of almost reaching the point now where he's going to be at a crossroads in his career for a little bit. I think the starting rotation seems to be relatively set. I know, when Sean Burke came in to the game today, and we're going to talk about that in a little further, they were talking, John Schriffen and Steven Stone were basically, saying that they thought he was in competition for one of the final two slots in the rotation. I think something catastrophic would have to go wrong for Sean Burke to not get the number 4 or number 5 spot, and that really leaves Johnny Cannon as the odd man out. He might be at a point where he's going to have to reinvent himself entirely, or he might have to just be shifted over to a bullpen role. And who knows, maybe that will help some of the stuff to tick up a little bit and maybe cut down on the arsenal and kind of focus maybe on just a couple pitches. We see that happen with failed starters all the time. And, that might be the path for Mr. Cannon, unfortunately, here.
Yeah, this is a name that you wrote pretty extensively about last season, Steve. And, obviously there was a little more runway, I think, up until a certain point within the year last year. And you saw him make his way back down to Charlotte. I don't like the fact that this hasn't panned out as much as we want it to, but there's a lot of names here. Our guy Todd just wrote something that's up on Tap Sportsnet today, ranking 10 of the different names that could potentially wind up in that 5th starter spot. We got a comment coming in here. I was told Steve's BF Banny was going to fix the pitchers. We talked about this extensively last week on the show. Go ahead, Steve. Take it away.
Yeah, maybe go back in through the archives here, pal, and take a listen to what I said last week. I was very explicit in my commentary that this is a pivotal year for Mr. Bannister and for the rest of the pitching hierarchy in terms of seeing development and seeing progress from a number of the pitchers here. So he is not getting a free pass from me here. It's been well documented that the White Sox do not have an accountability problem. And on this show, we do not have an accountability problem. So I will take Brian Bannister to task when I believe it is appropriate.
Bannister refuses to wear headbands.
That's hashtag confirmed.
That is, it could be fake news. It could be real news. We don't know. We don't know the answer to that. Steven, I was, kind of coming into this spring training, looking at a couple of players' names. I would say Johnny Cannon is definitely one of them. Could see him wind up in maybe a long relief role. I don't really think he's got the stuff to be a back end bullpen guy. Do you see that? Do you see him developing that? I don't know if the velo is there.
Well, what would have to happen is there would have to be a refinement of his arsenal. The four-seam fastball, he can get to 93, 94. And when you see guys transition it into a one-inning role, that velocity, especially on the four-seam, ticks up in a lot of cases. So, maybe you get another couple of ticks from him up to 95, 96 with it. And then if you pair it with, maybe just a slider, I just think that the whole sinker cutter repertoire that he's been featuring, it's just not working. So maybe just shortening that up a little bit, going to just the four seam. And that's something I wrote about a lot last year. The results, have for the most part been better in his time at the major league level, utilizing a more four seam approach, but they still just want to use this sinker heavy approach that just isn't getting the results. So maybe if he does transition to a bullpen role, maybe that is kind of part of the transformation that would take place. The velocity could tick up, and who knows, maybe something like that could be the thing that ultimately allows him to have some sustainability at the big league level.
There you go. There's the insights from the pitching expert here at Sox on Tap. I'm Johnny Cannon. Obviously, you hinted at the Hayes home run, but I also want to talk about Murakami. Just missed one, bases loaded, just missed the slam, ends up with an RBI double there that kind of broke this one open. That is good to see in your debut as well, Stephen. What any thoughts on initial impressions from Murakami thus far through his 2 games with the White Sox? He's had 6 at bats. He's gotten 2 hits. One's the double. He's drove in 2, but he has struck out twice. We were told we were going to see some swing and miss in his game. I think it's there, but initial impressions.
The game on Friday, that first at bat had a ground out, and then second at bat, 108 mile an hour base hit up the middle right there, and then the 2-run double that you alluded to that was a little bit sun aided, high Arizona sky, and a guy that typically is not a center fielder. I mean, so we have to be objective here on this show.
That's fair. That's fair. It was still fun to watch.
I enjoy. Listen. When those things happen and they benefit the Sox, I'm all for it, as we all know. And I think to this point, we've seen him have, I would say a sound plate approach up there. Going up there, trying to work the strike zone consistently. And that's something that was one of his hallmarks when he was playing in the MPB. So we're seeing that very early on here. So, initial reaction to this point through 2 games and 6 plate appearances is, it's been good, and I'm hopeful that we get to see some of that light tower power on full display here relatively soon.
Yes. And I got to get to this comment again from Matthew. We were talking about this via some text messages the other night. Taka's double was
you
big.
Actually text message with this jabroni?
Yes, I do. We were chatting about this the other day. Him driving 95 mile an hour is a big deal, considering that was supposedly his Achilles heel coming over here. I like the insight on this one. What are your thoughts on that?
And that's actually a very salient point from Matthew. As much as it might pain me to say something like that, watching how he is able to handle the premium velocity here this spring is, one of the things that I'm paying particularly close attention to. And that is one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit more about later on in the show. Cause I've got a spicy little take that I'm gonna say for later.
A spicy meatball?
It's a spicy meatball.
Yeah, we're just watching some hockey over in Italy. It's got the juices flowing. You got a spicy meatball take to give us here towards the end of the show. Let's move on to Saturday's ball game. This was an 11-2 drubbing over the former Oakland Athletics. I don't think they really have a home at the moment, so
they're still playing. They're actually
Sacramento, right?
They actually will have a jersey this year that will say Sacramento on it.
Okay, so the Sacramento A's.
I don't know that they're going by Sacramento, but they will have a jersey that does say Sacramento on it.
I would consider that to be Sacramento. I don't know. I'm never gonna get over the fact that they're no longer the Oakland A's. Even when they're in Vegas, I think, we could still probably call them the Oakland A's. I know that people, when the Bears go to Indiana, are still going to call them the Chicago Bears.
We're not.
Hey, this is a big topic. In fact, you should talk to your guy, Ronald Luce, about it. He had some strong words over at On Tap Sportsnet talking about, teams not playing in their state and the double standard that is that. But 11-2 nonetheless. I thought the standout player from this game was Edgar Quero. 3 for 3, drove himself in 4 runs in this game. It just had a big day at the plate. This is the same Edgar Quero that I think we saw some flashes of last season, Steve. Just a great plate approach. And, him and Kyle Teal holding down the catcher spot. It's sort of turning into what you can consider almost an embarrassment of riches as far as young players at a premium position, Steve. What are your thoughts? Did you catch Saturday's game? Any takeaways from it outside of Edgar Caro?
I did not catch any of the ball game on Saturday. My younger nephew, it was his last basketball game of the season, so being the 18-time reigning and defending Uncle of the Year, I fulfilled my civic duties, going taking in that ball game. But I was following along with it on the cellular mobile wireless device here. Edgar Carroll to me is the one guy I'm paying the closest attention to here this spring. There was I think it was a Dave Schoenfeld article on ESPN.com about a month or so ago, talking about him going to Driveline out in Scottsdale and trying to rework some of the aspects of his swing to try to generate more loft and get a little bit more carry in his swing. And for me personally, he's been lauded for having a quality plate approach ever since they acquired him from the Los Angeles of Anaheim of Orange County of California of the Pacific Time Zone Angels back in the Lucas Giolito deal, July of 2023.
Feels like forever ago, doesn't
it? It really does. It really does. The power has not really manifested to this point, and the slug has not been something that has manifested here. So it's going to be interesting to continue to watch to see how that develops over the course of the spring, because if he can be a guy that can at least be a doubles threat, and playing the catcher position, giving him stability between him and Kyle Teal, as you alluded to there, but just being able to be at least a doubles threat, that would go a long way towards really helping to cement his position on this team going forward and really helping to create balance in this lineup, because obviously him being able to hit from both sides of the plate is a tremendous benefit right there. So Edgar Carroll is really the guy that I'm paying very close attention to this spring here, and he's getting off to a really nice start, which you'd love to see.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. He is batting 1,000 right now. You can't argue with that. It's small sample size theater, but it's definitely good theater, in my opinion, Steven. Today's ball game, 5-2 win over the Milwaukee Brewers. This is another. They were playing a split squad game. We'll we got to provide the facts, but they brought some of their better players, I think, over here for this one, and it was the return of Andrew Vaughn to Camelback Ranch. In case you were interested in seeing how Andrew Vaughn was doing, Sox take another one, 3-0, setting the tone. Steven, this was another pretty decent ball game. And here's another name. I know that we'll bring him up again in our next segment here, but Sam Antonacci getting the job done today as well as in the first game. He's actually looked pretty good in his 4 at-bats. He does have 2 hits, has driven in 3 runs. A little bit of a clutch gene there, if you ask me. Just coming through when you need it, and that's good to see, at least early on in here through spring. Steve, any thoughts from today's ball game?
This was just a relatively crisp baseball game. Mike Vassell really struggled on the mound today. That was one of the things that I kind of took away from that. But again, that is something that can happen up in Arizona. I think particularly guys, that first outing, adrenaline's pumping a little bit. And pitchers notoriously have issues with breaking balls and sinkers in Arizona due to the thin air. So, that's something that can happen. I was interested to watch Tanner McDougal close out, this game here today. So watching him, that was kind of my first time really getting to lay eyes on him. That's a big boy right there. Somebody that's really kind of burst onto the scene this year. He's kind of at the back end of some top 100 prospect lists through his performance with AA Birmingham a year ago, and somebody that a lot of people think is going to make his way to the corner of 35th and Shields at some point during the 2026 season here. So it was nice to kind of see him a little bit right there. So there's definitely some stuff there. Be interested to kind of watch him further here as the spring progresses, though.
Yeah, I like the comments on Vassell. This was a guy that they're going to give the opportunity, from what he's said, an opportunity to look at that fifth starter role. He did throw the most innings of any White Sox reliever in a very long time last season. So there is the ability for him to cover some innings. And I think he's going to cover a lot of innings for the Chicago White Sox this season, Steve. But I just feel like he is just more of an asset at the back of this bullpen. I know we've added some names, but last year, I kind of liked when Mike Vassell was in that closer role. Obviously, Sir Anthony Dominguez is probably going to get the look. Steve Stone made a comment on today's broadcast about Sean Newcomb getting an opportunity and a look at the starter role too. Any thoughts on that? That one kind of struck me a little. It was a little offsetting because I figured that he would be probably a 7th, 8th, potential 9th inning guy rather than a starter. Steve, did you catch that?
I did catch that, and I thought that Chris Getz had alluded to that when he signed, but ultimately, I think Newcomb is probably going to just be a swing guy. Maybe somebody that is used in an opener capacity in certain circumstances, or a guy that can just be a multi-inning pitcher. Kind of middle part of the game right there. I don't personally think it's going to be a viable option to have him in the starting rotation, but who knows? I mean, maybe they did bring him in here with the intent of giving him an opportunity to earn a spot in the starting rotation. So we'll just kind of wait and see on that, but I don't really see him as somebody that is going to be in that 5-man starting rotation with consistency. Like I said, though, I mean, I could almost see a scenario where he's used in an opener capacity, maybe for a guy like Sean Burke.
Hey, that's somebody that definitely needed some openers last season, and good point. Good point to bring up there. That's all I've got on the pitching. I did want to give a little shout out to Tristan Peters for absolutely unloading on one. I think that one went 422.
Yeah, that ball,
boy home run.
That ball might have landed in Tucson.
Big boy home run, and the Sox secure their third victory of the young spring training season, Stephen. We titled the show Setting the Tone. Could you have asked for a better start?
Narrator voice, no, I cannot.
All right. I think we're all in agreement on that one. Steve, let's move on to a big baseball topic. We just finished the Olympics. Obviously, we're both rocking our red, white, and blue today for good reason. And there's some more. Yes, America. Love that country. There is more international competition coming our way very soon, and that is the World Baseball Classic. And the White Sox will have a couple of representatives heading to represent their countries. Unfortunately, none representing the good old United States of America, Steve. I like when we've got some guys representing the red, white, and blue, but there will be some representation from the White Sox in this competition. Obviously, the big name here is Meade representing the Australians down there. I know that that is a very historic baseball country, and they love their baseball down there. Sir Anthony Dominguez will be representing the Dominican Republic. I've got two guys representing one of my heritage cultures here in Italy, and that's Kyle Teal and Antonacci are going to be over there just rocking out for Team Italy. And then the big name, obviously, the one that we are going to talk about the most here, because I think there's some things you might have to say about this, and that's Murakami representing the Japanese team, and he in the, I believe it was the 23 World Baseball Classic, had a couple of really big clutch hits in that tournament for Team Japan. Stephen, it's almost World Baseball Classic time. I know that there are varying opinions on this tournament and its time frame and when it takes place, and all that good stuff. But if we were reminded by one thing today, this is just my personal opinion, international competition with the sport's best players is always makes for fantastic television, unless one of your star players gets hurt or has any sort of injury or starts to struggle really bad because of it. Other than that, it provides excellent television, and it is a joy to watch. Steve, thoughts on the guys heading to the World Baseball Classic, from the Chicago White Sox roster?
Personally, I would prefer Kyle Teal not be going. I would prefer he stay in Major League camp.
And this is just because you don't want to see Team Italy advance.
I mean, I have no worries that they will be dispatched in short order. I mean, the little meatball makers, they're going to be, they'll be sent home, quickly.
Vinny Pasquantino, Kyle Teal, that lineup rocks.
Fuck Vinny Pasquantino, okay? Fuck him.
Hey, just saying. Just saying.
And I stand
Where's
by my
Poland's baseball team?
Oh, trying to be a funny guy here, huh?
I'm just asking questions.
I don't know. I don't look at the qualifying process for the WBC.
I'm surprised you're not pitching for them.
Yeah, they they would have pretty big problems if they got in touch with my agent and tried to bring me out of retirement here, but that's not why you called. Do you want me to give my spicy take here?
Yes, let's get to it. Let's get to it.
I personally do not think Munetaka Murakami should be playing in the WBC. He played an integral role in Japan winning the tournament 3 years ago. So he's already had that experience. He had one of the pivotal hits against Mexico in the semifinals that helped to keep them alive when they were on the brink of elimination. This is a guy that is, making a major transition to see the best pitchers in the world with consistency. And the concerns that exist about his ability to be able to handle premium velocity are going to be something that will persist through the first probably 6 to 8 weeks of the season. I think he would have been best served to stay in camp with the White Sox and be seeing Major League pitching in the Cactus League on a consistent basis instead of going and beating up on Chinese Taipei and China and all the other scrubs that they're going to face in pool play. And then, maybe you run up against Cuba and, there's just not a lot of quality pitching there. He's trying to establish himself at the big league level here, getting exposure to Major League pitching and even to higher level minor league pitching, guys that will eventually be Major League pitchers with premium velocity. I think he would have been best served doing that instead of going to play for Team Japan. And I'm sure I'm going to get roasted for that opinion, but I stand by it.
Well, it's certainly an opinion you got here. I would put this one of the spicier variety. I think we'd have to look at this and evaluate, are some of the best pitchers going to be participating in the World Baseball Classic? Got to look at the pools and you bring up beating up on Chinese Taipei and some of the other countries that aren't going to provide that. I think, from, a devil's advocate position here, I would say he's probably going to see probably more plate appearances in these games than he would in spring training.
There's an easy way to remedy that.
There is an easy way to remedy that. It's called put him in the lineup every day. So far, the Sox haven't done that. I've been happy to see that, he's played 2 out of the 3 games. However, if I do have one exception to it, this is someone that you did bring over here to be your guy. And you need to figure out, can he play on a consistent basis? What is his ceiling? What is his floor? What do we need to work out before, the end of March comes, which is going to happen quickly. We're just about a month and 4 days away from
opening day.
Games.
Opening day. Thursday in Milwaukee, which again is Algonquin for the good land.
And I heard some rumors that certain people might be up in Milwaukee for that opener.
Certain tax write-offs could happen. Who knows? Some things
happen. Sometimes they don't. You never know. A good laid plan sometimes falls through, but I don't know. It could happen. But I just think that he needs to be playing, and I somewhat agree with you. I think he needs to be playing underneath the White Sox organization as much as he possibly can during this time. And you're going to lose a lot of valuable spring training time for all of these guys who are going over there. I'm not too worried about Antonacci or even Meade or Sir Anthony Dominguez. I'm not, your closer. How many times does he really come out during spring training? I'd rather him get those late inning looks, and I don't even think he's going to be closing for the Dominican Republic. So leave that where it will. We had a lot of discussion about Sir Anthony Dominguez on this show so far already this season. You can roll the tape on that in terms of how we feel that he fits in the closer role for the White Sox. But I think for Murakami, you put the Sox in an interesting situation when you bring him over. I'm sure he had clearly defined his intent to play for Team Japan, and the White Sox aren't going to stand in the way of that. Would it be better if he was sticking around in spring training? I probably think that would be more beneficial than going and playing in the WBC for him. And hope and pray that we get through this without any injuries or hiccups, because that would be hashtag that's so White Sox if it did happen, Steve.
And then the other thing too, the other thing too is, so I thought they said on the broadcast that, or I read it somewhere, I don't know if it was in an article from Merck or somewhere, that he's possibly leaving to go back to Japan on Thursday. So he's got to fly back to Japan, which I've never flown, I've never been to Japan, but it seems like that it would be an arduous process to get there. There's that giant body of water that kind of gets in the way right there, and then your body clock is all fucked up and everything. So you got to deal with that, and then assuming Japan advances out of pool play, you got to fly back to the States, so you got to deal with all that travel back and forth and everything. I just think that it would have been best for him and for the White Sox had he foregone it this go around, but such is life.
Yeah, we're not really going to be able to change that one, but I do share some of these same concerns that you do on this. Maybe not as entirely gung-ho on the fact that he died, can't go represent his country, but I would have to agree that it would probably be better for his acclimation process to have stayed in Arizona. Now, am I excited to watch him in the World Baseball Classic? Yes, I am. I think that that'll be good television. But either way, I just hope that all of the White Sox players who are participating in international play do so without any injuries. That's my wish. That's it. Just get through it, get back here healthy and ready to go for opening day.
Yeah, I don't need Kyle Teal slipping on any pasta sauce in the clubhouse. I don't need that happening.
No, we don't. It's always a risk, but I just wish that they would do this tournament potentially, I don't know, maybe in domed stadiums over the winter with months before spring training to start. I don't think they want to mess with NFL scheduling and whatnot, but it would be nice.
There's just unfortunately not a good time really to do it.
No, there's not. But do you want to break in the season like the NHL did for the Olympics?
No, they'll never. The Players Association has enough battles that they're fighting right now. That's another one we don't need to add onto the list.
Yeah, we're gonna need to do a show on the State of the Union at some point here. Maybe we could slip a little bit of that in here. There was some not so great things that took place in the Baseball Players Association. Steve, were you as shocked as I was by that news?
I was not aware of some of the proprieties that Tony Clark was accused of. I have said for a while that he was just completely inept in his role, and that if the Players Association was really focused on trying to fix some of the issues within the sport, that they would hire an actual professional labor negotiator and not have that bozo calling the shots anymore. So to see him actually out of the fray now, and with Bruce Meyer in charge now, I'm going to say it once again. I don't think we get baseball in 2027 before the 4th of July.
It's gonna be an epic battle. You hear the news coming out that the owners have assembled their war chests. It was, I think the figure was somewhere near what, 75 million.
$75 million bucks, which is more than the
per
Sox
team.
current payroll.
Interesting that we're able to do that. Yeah, and the numbers don't lie. Steve, I hope we get baseball next year. If I had to look into my crystal ball, 4th of July seems reasonable, but something tells me this could drag on past that. It's just my gut feeling right now.
The problem is if you drag on much past that,
you don't have a season.
Right. I mean, we saw, God, man,
Look at the COVID year.
It's been 6 years ago now at this point.
Feels like yesterday, even though we were just saying the Lucas Giolito trade felt so long ago. It's weird that the COVID year feels like it was yesterday.
I mean, it's more than half a decade ago at this point.
That's
and
crazy.
that season, I think, started on like July 22nd or July 23rd. And obviously there were significant, variances.
You have to restart stuff back up. You've got to do an abbreviated spring training.
And then
schedule, travel, all that
stuff. The schedule was all regionalized. So, but realistically, like
baseball could look totally different though.
It could
depending on how you come out of here and what Rob Manfred wants to do to the sport. It could look vastly different in terms of alignment.
Right. Well, I don't think we're going to see any significant realignment stuff happening during the course of this CBA. There's not really going to be any realignment until we get the 2 expansion teams, which I almost think would probably be negotiated as part of this CBA. I would think to see what 2 cities are ultimately going to be selected. And then I think at this point here, like the fee for an expansion is probably, it's got to be over $1 billion at this point here. So the owners will like that to be able to get $2 billion to add to their war chest that they so desperately need. So I can't envision a scenario where you see any kind of realignment just for a shortened season or any realignment at all until we have teams 31 and 32 enter the league.
It's a good thought. We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. I just worry that baseball will continue to not look the same way that it did prior to this. And one last note on spring training and the WBC and everything. How have you been feeling about the ABS challenge system thus far, Steven? Speaking of changes, while we're on the topic,
it's been fine. We saw. I mean, the Brewers. They
were really good.
They used 5 challenges today. It's been fine, honestly. I think obviously the umpiring has gotten really questionable over the course of the last couple of seasons here.
So you're in favor of the technology then?
I'm still waiting to really form my ultimate opinion on it. I think the initial foray here to this point, and I remember they kind of tinkered with this a little bit like last spring and everything. And I'm waiting to gather more of a sample size here before I form my opinion on it. But it's not positive or negative to this point.
All right. I'm gonna
very middle of the road answer. I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold my judgment too. We'll see how many times it, comes to bite the White Sox in the ass.
That's the key.
Yeah, that's definitely the key here. There's no homerism involved. We just want to see how many times it bites us in the ass and helps other teams. One more comment coming in here from Sidney Brown. A salary cap will not solve all the issues for the owners. I don't think it's going to solve all the issues. I don't think it's really going to hurt as much as people say it will. I know that's middle of the road as well. But
I think, I think if you want to be the Dodgers or the Mets and you want to spend a shit ton of money to build the best possible roster you can, I think you should be able to do that. And for all the people that say, oh, well, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and all these small market teams will be priced out. Well, then guess what? Then Bob Castellini can sell his team, get his, significant profit windfall from it. There's some other ultra billionaire hobbyist who will want to come in and buy the team and spend a lot of money with the hopes of driving up the franchise valuation to sell it in 10 to 12 years and make a shit ton of money. There's enough of these guys out there at this point. So if you don't want to spend money to build a competitive team, get the fuck out.
That's one way. That's one end of the spectrum. There are other ends of the spectrum as well that, want to talk about how it could help drive up parity. And I've heard the counter arguments to that.
This whole parity thing that everybody likes to talk about, literally, they talk about the NFL with all this parity nonsense. Like
there's
there were
first
three
argument that I hear all the time.
There've been like for like a 15-year period, every year the team representing the AFC was either the Colts, the Patriots, or the Steelers. And then now you look over the course of the last decade, you have the Chiefs all the time. So like this whole thing about this parity thing that goes around. I can tell you this, I've looked at the numbers. More teams have won a World Series or played in a World Series in Major League Baseball since the turn of the century than there have been in football. So miss me with that whole parity bullshit. And it's even worse in the NBA.
I'm saying what's out there online. I don't really watch much NBA, Steve, and I don't know enough about the league to make a comment on it, so I'll hold that back. I will say that in hockey, it seems to suppress salaries of players. Now, the financials around the NHL are totally different than the financials around most other major sports leagues that are out there. I think hockey players deserve to be paid a whole lot more. And if you want my thoughts on that, tune into Four Feathers podcast with Ron Luce and myself. But for, all intents and purposes, it's been a good thing, I think, in hockey in terms of keeping the league somewhat near parity compared to the other sports. Now, I say that with the caveat that I believe that it's hurt the Chicago Blackhawks long-term. And that's frustrating as a fan because the Wurzes have deeper pockets than most other franchises do. Mm-hmm. I know that brings up the arguments of, why aren't they better now? There's a lot. We're opening up a whole can of worms here. But I don't know where we're going to wind up with baseball and how this is all going to shake out. I don't see either side budging on this at all. And I think that sets up for a lot of missed games next year and us not being able to come on this show and talk about baseball. I do have live reports here, Stephen. I'm a big fan of fireworks. There are a ton of fireworks going off right now in Lockport, Illinois.
Big news if true.
They are going off right outside the window out here, and people are celebrating the USA victory today, and I fully support that. Just wanted to let you know. Big fireworks guy, as you know.
As you know, my appreciation for fireworks really is limited to when a White Sox player is rounding the bases while they're going off. So, yeah. And with that said, I just got a text from my wife that one of those fireworks just hit my house. So awesome. We'll see if we're still alive here in about 20 minutes. The show must continue. That's great. That's great news. I think I heard that one hit the roof as well. Sweet. Hopefully that thing still isn't like on fire or something. But if we have to leave or this place goes up in smoke, we went down doing what we love.
Yes, we did. last topic for the day, Steve. There was some stadium stuff that we found online on the X machine the other night. You and I were conversing back and forth on this, and it was a post from our guy Todd, actually, who had found something that David Kaplan had posted out there about the Sox potentially being courted by your home state. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you break this down.
All right, so somebody had tweeted Dave Kaplan directly, asking that if the Bears did not end up in Northwest Indiana, if they ended up ultimately in Arlington Heights, as I still believe to be the case, would Northwest Indiana pivot to try to lure the White Sox? And Kaplan responded, "They're already trying." My thoughts on it are this, and this is probably going to come to the surprise of a lot of people. I do not want that. While it would be extremely convenient for me if they, were having a stadium somewhere in that Wolf Lake area where they're talking about where the Bears are going to go, I don't want that. They are the American League's charter franchise. They were chartered in Chicago. I think they should stay in Chicago. I am somewhat of a sucker for baseball traditional ideals, and I think that the White Sox should be in the city of Chicago. If somehow that ended up happening where they moved to Northwest Indiana, like I said, it would be extremely convenient for me. I wouldn't be upset about it, but it's not what I want. This is one of the things that I wrote about, 12, 18 months ago when the 78 was all the rage. And I had said that I thought that that would be a good thing for the future health of the franchise, the post Reign of Terror world when Justin Ishbia is in full control. I do think that having a team in the third largest metropolitan market is significantly beneficial. And whether they would still be named the Chicago White Sox if they crossed over into Lake County in Northwest Indiana is immaterial. I think baseball is the one sport, just due to the sheer volume of games that take place. You do need to rely on tourists, large corporate outings, and you're not going to get that in Hammond, Indiana. It's just not going to happen. You wouldn't get that in Portage. You wouldn't get that in Gary. It just wouldn't happen. So for the long-term health of the franchise, them actually being in the city of Chicago, in the city limits, is ultimately the thing that will help them get to a different level. And I talk about things in the post Jerry Reinsdorf world, that this has the opportunity to be a rebirth for this franchise, something that is so sorely needed. And if worst case scenario, if Justin Ishbia does not gain control of this team until January 1st of 2034, per the terms of the agreement, that would be, 2.5 months before my 50th birthday. And I will have at that point have endured a lot of hardship at the hands of Jerry Reinsdorf. And so if this team building a new stadium in the South Loop or in some other area of the city, building it in Lot B, building it on the west side next to the United Center, wherever that is, having a new stadium, I will sacrifice my personal convenience if it is for the betterment of this franchise and getting to see them be a consistent winner in my remaining time that I have on this earth, should I get to that point right there. And I also think that Justin Ishbia gaining control of this team, building a $75 million compound in Winnetka, and him saying on record that at some point during his stewardship of the Chicago White Sox, they will get a new stadium, that it will be in the city of Chicago. I take that to be a pretty serious thing to put in print. I don't see him putting all his, financial might behind this asset that is just waiting to be reawoken to move it to Northwest Indiana, where you just don't have the population density to be able to support it. And while there is a very large footprint of Sox fans in that area, again, you're not going to be able to get the tourists and the people in for large corporate outings that you need to be able to sustain quality attendance over the course of an 81 game home schedule. So I just would prefer that not happen. I know Kaplan put that out there already. There's been no other real talk about this from any standpoint, but I would prefer them to stay in the city limits somewhere.
Fair enough. My only counter argument to this would be I need to set up a conversation between you and our guy Ron Luce on this topic, as he just wrote an article here at On Tap Sportsnet saying why the double standard with the Chicago Bears stadium saga, and talking about how multiple teams, and again, this is football. I know you're not the biggest football guy on the On Tap Sportsnet roster, Steven, but he called out that Chicago, Indiana, the Illinois-Indiana border is no different than, say, the New York Jets and Giants playing in New Jersey.
I think I can very succinctly sum up what the issue is without having read Southside Ronald's piece. And I don't know if he alludes to this. So if he does, maybe, you can enlighten me. But basically what it comes down to is you people, and specifically people that reside in a 606 zip code, maintain this aura of superiority in thinking that the region, anyone that lives in the region, that we are second-class citizens. I don't think that exists with the whole New York, New Jersey thing. I don't think that exists with LA and Inglewood. I don't think that exists with Dallas and Arlington. Maybe our friend Matthew can provide some insight into that, being a Texas resident right there. But that's what this all comes down to is, you people like to talk a lot about Indiana, and that's where this whole thing just falls apart. And that's why
I don't know who you people is referring to here.
You people from Illinois.
Oh, you were an Illinois person at one point.
I was okay. It was a
resident of Naperville.
It was an 18-month jail sentence. Okay, I was released on good behavior.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
One of the worst 18 months of my fucking life, too. Let me tell you.
I'm just telling you that there are other individuals who have talked about, how much of a good business opportunity it would be for the Chicago Bears to move to Indiana based on the financials that are presented to said organization. And at the end of the day, a business is going to look out for its own good. And does Illinois give the Chicago Bears the best deal? Does Illinois give the Chicago White Sox the best deal? Or does Indiana give them the best deal? Now, there's a lot of, we've gone through this rigmarole multiple times on whether or not, we live in Chicago. And as a Northwest Indiana resident or a South suburb resident like myself, there are certain people who try and gatekeep the name of Chicago from being said.
No one is more sensitive than a person with a 606 zip code.
So if we're gonna play these semantic games on whether or not the Chicago Bears are still the Chicago Bears because they play in Hammond, Indiana, are the Chicago White Sox still the Chicago White Sox because they play over the border? That's what I'm trying to bring up. I don't think that White Sox fans are going to lose a ton of sleep as long as the team remains within the metropolitan area that is Chicago. Now, there will be discourse about it, regardless of where this stadium winds up. But if we've got Bears fans, and we know Ron, we love Ron, if we've got Bears fans saying that, this could actually be good for the Chicago Bears, and it gives them the ability to remain somewhere near Chicago. I think as a White Sox fan, just for me personally, I would rather see them go to Northwest Indiana than leave the metropolitan area of Chicago if that's the only way to keep them within quote unquote the city limit metropolitan area is to go to Northwest Indiana because Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't want to pony up the money. And we talked about this on the last show. They're waiting for this Bears thing to settle down. And I'm not surprised by David Kaplan's comments that, could all of this hoopla around the Chicago Bears and the legislature that's been passed over in Indiana actually be for the Chicago White Sox as sort of that second, like, could that actually be their target, knowing that the Bears are trying to make a leverage play just to get the best deal in Arlington Heights? And I think they've set themselves up to enter the conversation for being the next home of the Chicago White Sox.
Honestly, I just don't really take any of it seriously from the perspective of the Sox. Again, I just don't think that Justin Ishbia would, try to, ultimately have a deal in place with this asset in the third largest market in the country, knowing that he has resources combined with his brother that can only be matched by Uncle Stevie in New York. I just don't see it personally. And
that's fair. As long as are you acknowledging that Northwest Indiana is not part of Chicago though?
It's a suburb. It's a suburb.
So you see them staying in the city limits, even though the Bears are going to probably leave city limits.
I mean, everybody knows I don't really care what happens to the Bears. I think that, Chicago's real football team, the Cardinals, should be brought home. But
hey,
that's not why you called.
That's a hot take.
That's not why you called. Again, I'm just focused on the long-term health and growth of the White Sox in the post Jerry Reinsdorf world. And I think that will best be accomplished when Justin Ishbia has control and the team has a new stadium somewhere in the city limits.
All right, there we go. Well, we'll see how this all plays out. One last topic. I think we got time to slip this one in here. Little bonus topic. Steven, have you been watching much college baseball? Because I keep seeing college baseball highlights plastered everywhere. As a longtime member of the show once said, he loves watching stuff with grainy highlights, and I feel like we are back in the grainy highlight era right now.
I don't know. ESPN's highlights are their cameras aren't particularly grainy.
No, they're not grainy, but nonetheless, it's not Major League Baseball highlights being plastered everywhere on our timeline so far. It's college baseball highlights, and for good reason. Projected number 1 overall pick, Rock Chalowski, is tearing the cover off the baseball. And I've refrained, honestly, from getting my hopes up about any of this, Steve. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are just gung-ho about everything college baseball right now. Number 1 overall pick. I'm trying to temper my expectations just based on what I've witnessed in my lifetime. I'm trying to temper my expectations as much as I can. Although this is being shoved down our throats, whether we like it or not, and I get it. I was this way with Connor Bedard highlights once the Chicago Blackhawks knew they were picking number 1 overall. Different franchise, different feeling. I don't know if that's just the conditioning, or maybe I've spent too much time talking to you and other White Sox fans who've been through this before, who are a little bit older than I am, but I'm really trying to temper my expectations and say, we need to wait and see if this translates. But are you watching a healthy amount of college baseball this season? And are you excited about, what is that, 5 or 6 homers in 6 games so far for the projected number 1 overall pick, Mr. Rock out there? And I know you're a wrestling guy. Can you smell what he's cooking?
Oh, I can smell what the Rock is cooking. Let me tell you. Do I actively go out of my way to watch college baseball? No. Friday night, I was at a buddy of mine. out in your neck of the woods, and we were just kind of looking for something to throw on the TV, and I saw that UCLA was going to be on. I'm like, oh, throw that shit on there, and so obviously was watching that, and Rock hit a grand slam in his second at bat. Hit an oppo dinger in his third at bat, and just looks the part. And there were a lot of references to the White Sox on that broadcast, and a lot of commentary about Sox fans on the internet paying particularly close attention to Rock Chalowski and his performance with UCLA, and he's off to a tremendous start to the season and living up to the hype. And I think that's something that's only going to intensify here as the season progresses. UCLA is the number one team in the country right now. They made it to Omaha last year, and they're looking to try to get back there. And, when you have a team that's ranked first in the country with a guy that is the projected, number one overall pick right now, there's going to be a lot of media scrutiny. Obviously, I feel like people on that one social media website that some of you frequent, I feel like there's probably a lot of Rock Chalowski talk and highlights going around there. But if I'm scrolling through and if I need something to watch and I see UCLA's playing, yeah, I'll put it on there and I'll watch his at bats. And
do you like what you see so far?
I mean, so far, yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Kind of hard to argue.
It's hard not to. I know the other player that's kind of rumored to be in the conversation to a significantly lesser degree, Justin LeBron, shortstop down at the University of Alabama. Roll damn Tide. He's off to a pretty nice start himself here. Although I feel like there's probably a segment of Chicago meatball fans that wouldn't want them to draft a guy named LeBron, because a lot of meatballs.
Jordan, LeBron, the debate continues.
Yeah. They really, his parents really should have fucked around. They should have named him Jordan LeBron just to watch heads explode.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been wild.
Awesome.
But he's off to a really solid start. I think ultimately the team, they're going to get a quality player at 1-1 right there. Right now, Chalowski seems to be the consensus to go in that slot, but look, we still got, 4 months left in the college season here. A lot of things can happen, and we'll just continue to monitor, as we say in the business.
Always monitoring situations, Steven. That's what we do here. Oh boy, it's gonna be interesting to see how this one shakes out. I'm excited for the MLB draft. I'm sure we're gonna have plenty of discussion on this as it continues to move forward. Small sample size theater. Love talking about it.
And who knows?
It's fantastic.
Knowing that the draft takes place in All-Star weekend, All-Star games in Philly this year, a certain corporate entity that I work for is based in Philly. Who knows? Maybe boots on the ground scenario. Who knows?
Hey, I support it. You've been at some historical White Sox moments in your lifetime. This could be another one. That just about does it for Sox on Tap, Season 8, Episode 3.
83.
Yeah, 83. There you go. Some 83 references here on the show. Steven, it's been fun. We've had a lot to talk about. My house hasn't burned down yet, so that's a good sign. Good sign. No smoke detectors going off. So I think we're going to be safe here, and I hope people continue to light off fireworks and celebrate Team USA's victory over Team Canada. We own hockey here in the United States of America, in case you didn't know.
Not only is our bacon better, but our hockey is better too.
That's good. That's good stuff that we talk about here on Sox on Tap. Steve, any final thoughts before we close this show down and get on with our Sunday evening?
It's just very nice to have baseball back in our lives. I was able to have the dual monitor set up, have a couple of games going earlier today, and it just feels like a sense of normalcy is coming back, and life is, feeling pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, life is feeling better with baseball. My final thought is, man, it's gonna suck that we don't get all of these games broadcast to us, and I think that this is just a common theme across baseball and the media landscape. broadcast your spring training games. This feels like a tease. We get a whole weekend of games, and now what? I think it's 2 weeks before we get another CHSN broadcast. We've got our own network, basically. I don't know what other programming that CHSN is running every day at 2
You have
o'clock.
to get the Missouri State versus Morehead State women's volleyball game on.
Yeah, Chicago Sports Network, and this message is also for Marquee Network as well. They're, I think, only broadcasting about 7 of the Cubs games, and I know that baseball fans on the other side of town are pinched by this. There's a couple of teams that aren't getting any games broadcast as a result of the FanDuel debacle over there in that network not doing so hot. So I don't know how to solve this problem, but we need to find a way to broadcast all of spring training. People will tune in. I think more of your product is better. It doesn't always work on the bottom line. We understand that, but it just sucks as a baseball fan. I feel like we've gone backwards recently in recent years when it comes to broadcasting spring training games. I know some teams, once they've started their own broadcast networks or, partnered up with new TV deals, you get a full season of spring training. And it felt like from 2016 through 2020, we were able to watch a lot more spring training baseball than it feels like we're able to now. The webcasts are fine. They get the job done, but at least do all of them in your home ballpark. Every single team. Throw a camera up in the press box and don't commentate on it. I don't care what it takes. Give us baseball. Let us watch it in the afternoon. People will tune in just to see what's happening. You only need 2 or 3 cameras to get the job done. I don't know why it's that hard, and I don't know why we don't have as much access to watch the product as we should. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk here. It's just abysmal.
I have no rebuttal, Your Honor. Everything he said was perfect.
Give me baseball in the afternoon. All the end of February.
So I have a reason not to work.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be entertained, and I am not entertained when I don't have baseball to watch, Steve. It's sad. Quite frankly, it's sad that this is what we've come to. But who knows? And maybe we could work that into the next CBA. All spring training games broadcast. Somebody get a seat at the table. Somebody call Rick Hahn. We need a seat at the table. And I know he can get us one. Steven, this was fun. We'll be back very soon. Talk about more Chicago White Sox topics. Until then, make sure you're checking out ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. You can follow the show at Sox On Tap on X. You can follow me at Tony On Tap. You can't follow Steve. He's not online. That's about it. White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.